All right, we're just going to let those sheets be passed out. Invite everyone to take a couple of beautiful inhales and exhales, just letting that energy go. Allowing yourself to come fully present. So invite your whole self to come on into the room. And I know you've been at some incredible presentations and been meeting some new people. And we bring that all in here. There's no part of anything that you've experienced that isn't invited into the space. So just take a minute and just close your eyes before I introduce myself. And just come into, really feel that presence of the heart. And honoring how you're showing up in the world. So bringing that high level of gratitude right to your own heart. She's a troublemaker. Anyway, let's just keep going here. So we're just going to feel that ground, that connection with the earth. Feel that really beautiful cord of light going down into the mother. And really honoring that sacred connection with the mother. And we're gonna allow ourselves this beautiful pause to happen throughout this hour and 15 minutes. And as we take our next breath, just really feeling that illuminating energy rising and opening, just like the tree branches at the stone circle, the two tree branches that are open to receive. And perfectly receiving exactly what you need here today. And bringing that down back into your heart. And as we're coming here today in embracement of the ancestors, the people of this land, your own unique watershed. We honor the intelligence of water, one source water that's moving throughout our full inner ecosystem. And as we feel into the movement of the heart, because nothing is static, everything's sporadic, right? Everything's constantly calibrating into its highest potential. Allowing us to feel the connections in this room, bringing our own ancestral lineage into the space. Really feeling this beautiful web of light and life. And feeling this beautiful grid where there is no time. It's just movement, space, frequency, vibration. And today we're really coming into this center of self, this feeling of this resonant field of love. So for right now, we're not sending it outward. We're just allowing it ourselves to bathe in it. And now very gently, coming back fully present into the room. You can rub your hands if you'd like. This is a beautiful way of rubbing your palms together and making that full connection, putting your palms over your eyes. And our body is made of liquid crystal, right? So we're making a full circuit And you can open your eyes inside of your hands, which just very gentle, very gently just coming back present into the room. Taking a breath, looking around you, noticing who's in the space. So I just want to make sure, can you guys hear me back there? Aha, okay. So welcome everyone. Welcome to the space. I'm Shelley Darling. I just got to check to see if that my desktop isn't up there. For those who walked in and saw my desktop open, it was just a few days ago that this picture showed up, and I think very appropriately. It was a picture of when I was younger and living in Maine, and I used to ride horses. And I was, at that time, and many of you can probably resonate with this, you know, you had a dream. There was a sense of connection to the whole, right? And for me, it was riding horses, and that, you know, we were talking this morning, Marty and I, about horses and having the biggest heart and that vibration. And so that was my dream, and it got cut off when I was about 15 years old. And so this picture showed up, and it was part of me having all these ribbons and holding this, but it wasn't an egoic thing. It was my love. And so today, when we're talking about evolutionary dowsing, the only reason we're doing what we're doing is because we are coming back into the, I love this, the re-remembrance of who we are, what we came for, what our dream is, and to really be a part of that experience of fulfillment of that dream. And then, as Patrick was saying last night, he was really bringing in the collective, because we're not separate, and I'm sure we all know that here. But the people you're working with may not know that, may not be feeling that. We may have moments of feeling that separation. So for me, when dowsing came into my life, it was a completely out of left field. And I'm not going to go into the story of that, but it came out of left field, and what it opened up was a sense of connection to the earth. And that high level of feeling the movement of life itself through the dowsing. You know, yes, we're asking yes and no questions. Yes, we're each doing dowsing or some kind of alchemy work or light worker of some sort. Not necessarily everybody here is a dowser. So, and I'm suspecting that everybody here knows a little bit about dowsing, not, right? Okay, good. Anyone who doesn't? Okay, good. So, so the world of dowsing opened up from left field, and when things are meant to be, they happen, what? Synchronistically, right? I've been saying lately that God speaks in synchronicity, right? So when we start to feel that we're aligned with the force of nature itself, or I'll be speaking about the impulse of evolution. So for me, dowsing evolved into being called, my dowsing evolved into becoming called evolutionary dowsing, because it's creating the container where love can happen. Yes, clearing all those resistances, you know, in a home and in the land, so that we can rise up to really begin to feel that, the fullness of that resonance with life itself, the resonant field, or some of you might know it as the Akashic field, right? So evolutionary dowsing, let's see if I can get this to work. So if you're here, it's really about the weaving of ancient wisdom with evolutionary consciousness, because we can't separate it, right? And so the beauty of this is that so many of us are water dowsers, or maybe our forte is looking for lost items. This aspect of dowsing that you'll hear about today is transformational, but I want to speak to it as transmutational, because it is creating an environment. What I began to realize was, as I began to clear houses and clear land, all of a sudden people who felt confused or felt stagnant or felt stuck started to shift. As soon as you moved away, as soon as you cleared the geopathic stress, as soon as you cleared the negative vortexes, immediately people started to feel that resonance, right, with life itself. And when we're talking about the unified field, or the unified field of love, or the quantum field, what we're talking about is the very essence is that its very essence is to unify. And so this is what we're trying to do within ourselves and in our world. How do we walk as a culture of people, one-hearted people, in resonance with each other, in unity with each other? And every day we have our own experiences, which with our family members or our children or our grandparents or whatever it is, and we run into these challenges. But for me, the beauty of this experience is that we are being attuned with the field itself, and that is really what evolutionary dowsing is about. To come into that level of resonance where the field is constantly informing us, and we're aware of it, and we're living in like a river, right? Be the river. Be the river. So here we go. So welcome. So imagine how the world will change when humanity realizes its interconnectedness with all life and works together to restore the health and well-being of the whole. And if you're here at this Dowsing convention, that's what it's all about. And each one of us as whole beings, innately whole, are bringing our gifts to the forefront and learning how to be okay with that and be okay with our power, because our power is love. So evolutionary dowsing works to transmute non-beneficial frequencies in a house, office, and environment. The profundity is simultaneously this shift of energy creates a quickening in one's evolution. And I'll just speak to this for a moment, because this really blew my mind when dowsing came into my life, and that this quickening is nature's response to us. It is an organic happening. And so I began to see it in homes, and when there were a number of homes that were doused, all of a sudden it started to affect the community. And those homes all of a sudden began to be gathering spaces. People were beginning to feel safe enough, because this is really a big part of it, right? To feel safe enough to come out of their own shells, to feel safe enough to live that dream, and to stay in the center of the heart, to keep coming back. So that effulgent energy, right? Always coming back to the heart field. So if you came here today, you heard something about, someone came in saying chi lines. I call them key lines, but that's just the way I call them. You can call them chi lines, right? And I'm going to explain what those are. So today, in this next hour, I'm going to do my best to explain what is a key line. Oh, it's set to go on its own. Why is it beneficial to myself and my clients? And, I got it right. Oh, it went too fast. Okay. So anyway, so today we're here just to understand. And for me, what's really important is that this be an experiential experience for you. That you will participate, and we're going to participate as a group. There's a lot of people here in this room, so it's going to be interesting how this happens. But for the most part, what I've done is worked one-on-one with people. So I'm going to teach you how you can begin to work on this. The one thing about evolutionary dowsing, is that my background before dowsing came into my life was somatic integration, emotional integration for 12 years. So understanding the limbic system, how when we come into this world, how what we're doing now is in relationship to that. So how you come into this world, and I'm not going to, that's a whole other talk and experience, but so learning, so understanding, the bottom line is understanding that when the body's in this resonant frequency, it will integrate on its own. We don't have to try, and we don't have to do it. You know, yes, we need to have certain tools for our toolbox, but it's very powerful to, you know, just be able to. So evolutionary dowsing is inclusive. So key lines is the process that helps the person who has asked for dowsing in their home or their environment, and primarily their home, because ultimately, where do we come back to every day? To our house. So we want our house to be, yes, clear, but also at that very high frequency that's supporting us, right? So when we're working with key lines, no cures are used. It's a process that you, as a practitioner or specialist, takes your client through. And it's really simple. And not every house has a key line. Not every person has a key line. And a key line would be that the house really simply has a message for that person. You know how some people go like, I got to get out of this house. Nothing's working for me. I don't like this house. I never liked this house. And my husband or my wife really wanted to live here, but I never really wanted to live here. But there's a reason why that house is there in your life. Or we can look at, and we will look at childhood homes for, you know, some of you might choose that. So we're looking for what is it that the house has a message. And it's really different than me, let's say, channeling it for you. The idea is that you're walking this person through a transformation, and we're going to do it today so you experience it. And I may even read you a little bit of a part of a story in my book, where the rods, and I use these rods, L rods. So this is my work, and I'm actually learning how to become a pendulum dowser here. But basically, I'm using these L rods that have a sleeve because they can measure energy. This is what I like to use because I'm working with larger plots of land in the house, and you know, not only the yes and no questions, but we can measure energy. And where's the source coming from? They just make it easier. So today, I'll take you through a process of a key line. How do we find it? And possibly you finding your own. So no cures are placed, but a high level of somatic integration work and experience is necessary to fully support the people who have a key line in their house. We need to allow time for the information to rise. So this particular process takes a little bit of time. It's not just going and curing geopathic stress lines or vortexes. It's walking with the person and allowing the field, we'll say the field itself, to show the person where to go to find where they're going to gather this information. And sometimes the rods might have, well, I'll just say for me, for instance, or the practitioner, they might have you walking back and forth. They might have the client walking back and forth. It might tell you to go over to a window and have the person stand there and allow them to get why are they facing a half-open window. And it's a process that it's actually really fun, but it's very, very deep. And it takes a lot of listening. And as a practitioner, our tendency is we want to channel for the client. And we're there as a guide, but we're not there to tell them anything. They will get it. The process is to help them to really open their consciousness to their own dream, to their own, what is the blockage in their own experience. And they've attracted that house as a conduit for that. And when they get it on their own, it is it's a moment of epiphany. It's a moment of, oh my gosh. And, or it might take them into a really deep abyss of something that they had not even been able to tap into. I'll give you an example. So my brother had a house in Sarasota, Florida. I was living there. Well, before I was living there, he was married to someone who was about 20 years younger. Everything was groovy. My mom thought everything is wonderful. And she asked me to come douse her house. And the first thing I will always ask, are you ready? Because when you're dousing someone's house, it's a good thing to have their conscious yes, as well as someone just happened to tell them about this, right? So she called me and asked me to douse. And she happened to have a key line with that house. And it's as simple as asking, does this person have a key line? If they have children, do the children have key lines? It's a really simple question. And you are looking for the source of what is their next evolutionary step, right? So, and we'll open this up for questions. So she has me, you know, I clear the house first, and then I always wait till the end to do the key line, because you want the house to be at its highest vibration before you do the key line. And so there was a very big, you walked in the door and it was a very open, like almost like a rotunda kind of room. But there was this one pillar it was like smack dab in the middle of the room. And the dowsing rods had me moving her in front of the front door like this, back and forth. So just breathe with me. You can probably get this. Back and forth, and back and forth, and back and forth. And as a practitioner, I'm just asking her, just stay with me, right? And I'm doing the motions. In this case, I was doing the motions. When I'm doing it remotely, sometimes I'm having them do the motions. And I'm not saying anything. I'm just having them. So she's watching me. And then the rods start pointing to that pillar. And all of a sudden, it was really clear. And I had her move her back against the pillar and gave her time to feel what that felt like. So she started to describe the experience she was having. And she put her hands out like this, and she said, I feel like I'm being crucified. I feel like I'm stuck. I can't move. And you still keep asking the rods, you know, are we done? Is this where we land? In that case, that was it. It was really simple. And so she was standing there. I said, okay, so let me just take you through this again. So I go back, you know, and she said, I've been feeling really confused, right? She's walking back and forth in front of the front door, in this case. She can't get out the front door of her own life. And then she comes back and she says, I can't do this anymore. Okay, because when obviously when we're dowsing for someone and doing this type of transformational dowsing, so a little bit different than just looking for water, then we are being conduits for something, you know, that yes, does the water have something to do with it? Yeah, the geopathic stress. So then she starts crying. And she said, I want a child. And apparently they had been going back and forth. Him being older didn't want a child. Her being her age wanted a child, but she couldn't tell him. And she couldn't talk about it until the house was open and the frequency and the vibration, and she was in resonance with her own heart. So by doing the house with her in the beginning, right? So for some of us, and I'll talk about this at the end, for some of us, we're working with our clients in a way to walk them into the better part of themselves, right? That part that they haven't been fully able to, you know, be present with. And so in that case, so what happened, obviously, is that she ended up leaving my brother, right? And that's not a bad thing, right? because you always have to remember that the universe is always moving for the highest good of everyone. And in this case, as an evolutionary dowser, or you might be doing the same thing and call it transformational dowsing or shamanic dowsing. This is just another tool in your toolbox. But it is good to have some, emotional training a little bit to help that person and not get in their way. Because if they start to, like in that case, I don't need to go fix her. I just need to let her feel it. So she moves all that energy, right? So this is what we're talking about. We need to allow time for the information to rise. So why do I have the wheel of co-creation up here? How many of you have heard of Barbara Marx Hubbard or heard of her? Okay. For those who don't, really simply, Barbara Marx Hubbard was a futurist, a visionary, and actually she got on the Democratic ticket. I think it was 1984, I think. Anyway, she passed away a few years ago. But the beauty is, again, understanding that we're not separate from the universe, right? So she created this, the sacred story of creation and evolutionary communion, that we're not separate from the universe. We're not separate from God. We are that, right? And so this wheel of co-creation speaks to the universe, the evolution of the universe, the earth, life, animal life, as a spiral of, and at this point, this is universal humanity. And this is, when I was working with her, it was around 2011 through about 2013 or 14, 2013. And so it's basically understanding that this, when we're working with clients, we're in touch with this evolutionary consciousness that's pulling us. We can talk about it as the mother energy, pulling us into our highest evolution. And when we're doing this type of dowsing, we are, again, working with this level of awareness. And it's beautiful. So some of you might have, so we're talking, so I spoke to the unified field. Its innate essence is to unify, right? Is to bring us into our heart, is to allow us to feel that sacred communion of love. So together as a collective, we're building this field of coherence with self and earth and all of creation. So for me, working with clients and some of the people that I work with who are sitting in the front row and the back row, so understanding heart resonance is the keystone for our conscious return to wholeness. And honestly, that's, if you can imagine that each of us having that whole world view, understanding this beautiful frequency of love. And this is a toroidal field, and this is called the heart torus. And this is our body, and so energy is always moving, evolving. So if you were to ask me what my role is to really set the field for the empowerment. Just so how do we work with ourselves and our clients to help them to come into our heart and to help and to understand. And really, there's so many people here who are offering different beautiful tools for your toolboxes, and to how to do that. How do we really drop into our heart and actually be able to stay there, to be in that stillness, to feel the freedom of the love moving. So if you're engaging with any of the dowsers here that are, have come here, or the consortium Marty talked about, for a few of you were here for Marty's talk, where he spoke about the consortium. In 2015, I was moved to start a, a consortium of healers and light workers, because my joy is really working with group resonance and to support people to work together in communion and to really learn how to stay in that frequency of love together, which allows us to have different opinions. But how do we work together? And what we've been discovering, and I know Marty was talking about, is that when we start, so many of you, how many of you guys work alone and have your own business and, right, doing your own thing? Well, the joy that began to happen and the working with what we call the 12 around one, the power of the resonant field exponentially moves when we work together, when we are not so confined as holding on to what is ours to do. And when we start working together and we let go into the field, this field of love, and we'll have a couple people share their experiences, it's really magnificent. And what I discovered, as it was happening, I wasn't really thinking about it, but that's such a beauty, and you'll be invited into that at the end of this talk, is to kind of, let's come together, let's work together, let's beautify the world, and really, how do we stay in resonance? And I'm not going to I can go on and on about that, but we won't. We'll just keep going here. So, self-love is your superpower, and when love overflows, you can perform miracles of kindness. According to the Taoist framework, the human psyche functions as an organic resonator, directly exchanging and amplifying resonance, known as qi or qi, with its social and natural environment. Qi carries information essential for our growth and thriving as individuals and as a species. So, let's just all take a breath together. Have a drink of water. Drink water. Yeah. Not many people like this word, or it's an interesting word to work with, which is surrender. So just take a breath with the word surrender. And how hard is it to surrender when you feel like someone's saying something you don't like, or you're being triggered by a situation? And especially as healers, as light workers, how do we stay in resonance then? So this is an opportunity to understand that when I let go, so to me surrender is it's letting go. When I let go to the field itself, when I understand the field as a liquid, loving, light energy that I am in resonance with, then something starts to shift. And I can be and hold space in a way that I never have before. It doesn't mean I don't get triggered, right? So to me, this is another whole octave of working together that we are being invited into. And working with key lines, it opens that door to feeling this exquisite relationship with nature's intelligence, with the water, right? Because it is all about water. It is about how I communicate to you and to you and to you. It is that energy that's enlivening everything. And so when we're working with key lines, we are supporting individuals. Right now it's today will be a group experience, but we're working with individuals to help them really step into the joy of who they are. Because it's really, what are we working with? The joy field, right? It's a joyous field. And so the Dowsing Consortium became this, in a sense, a beta test of of how can we work together to really enhance people's homes, sacred sites, water areas, you know, how each one of us matter within the greater whole. And so it became a playing field to see how that can happen and what happens. And it's measurable, as Marty can share later on, or Charlie can share, or, you know, Kathy can share, Shanti Hart. So today we're gonna take a little journey, and you're gonna get to pick either your childhood home, or maybe there's another home that is knocking on your consciousness, or your home right now. What I said is that not everybody has a key line in their home, but my feeling is here, if I'm being asked to do this for the very first time, by the way, there is a global brain, and there is a global consciousness working, and we all know that here. So I'm going to invite you to just close your eyes for a minute and just take a breath. You can put your hand on your heart. You can put one hand on your belly if you feel it, wherever. And being present with what is ever moving in your consciousness. Knowing you are completely surrounded by the angels. And that we're not here to re-traumatize anything, okay? So don't go pick a home that there was a lot of abuse. Let's be light on ourselves here. But one of your childhood homes, you might have left something behind. Maybe you're in a house right now and you're feeling like, oh, I just want to get out of this house. I've been trying to move. I don't like this house. Or you're in a divorce and it's not really moving. Whatever the situation is, just let the house knock on your consciousness and just say yes, if that's what it feels. And when you know what it is, just you can open your eyes. I have 40 minutes left. No. Everybody has a house in mind? Okay. You could do your client's house, but you better have permission. Right. Okay. And maybe you're going to work on your client's house. Whatever. Okay, everybody ready? So I'm going to ask everyone to put your things down, and you're going to stand up. And this is really tricky. We could put the chairs alongside because you're going to need space. Yep. I would actually not do it. Do the house that you're moving from to find out maybe that there's some information you need to know to move into that house. So, yeah, so let's just take a minute. Does anyone have any questions at this point, or things moving that they, yep. Oh, sure. It could be apartment, yep. Condo, apartments are good. Or if you're in a condo or an apartment and you're dreaming of having a house, but you haven't gotten that house yet, you might want to go to one of the houses before, or one of your childhood homes, to see if there's something there. Okay? So you're going to need to move. So let's see. Just spread out if you can. And you can, we might need to do this in our imaginations, but you're free to move. You probably want to keep your eyes open so that you're not going to knock into somebody. Everybody good? Ooh, there's a lot of people. Okay. Okay. So this is what's going to happen. So we're going to start, and I want you to close your eyes for a minute and take yourselves outside of that house, facing the front door. And so you can see the roof line, so you might have to back up across the street. This is just a little bit of a feng shui golden nugget. Just take a look. Is there anything blocking that front door? Just notice what it is, or not. Notice if the walkway is zigzag, or is it a birth canal, a long passageway, down a hall. Just be aware of that, okay? So I'm going to ask you to walk yourself and notice the energy as you're walking into your house. And I want you to walk through that front door and then just close the door behind you. Notice what's in front of you. Is it a blocked wall? And again, this is just a little, I have a feng shui background, so we're having a little bit of a feng shui moment. Notice if there's a blockage, if there's a wall, if the staircase is going. Just be aware of it. And we're not here to fix anything, and we're not here to, just be aware. Just notice it, okay? All right, here we go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you how many to start walking. And you're going to walk, and if I tell you to take a left, or if I tell you to go right and go left, it doesn't matter. So open your eyes for a minute. There is a possibility that the rod can push me like this. And what's going to happen is I'm going to ask you to spin. I don't know if this is going to happen. Just go along with it. And if you don't get dizzy, but just lately something's, and I'll explain after the fact, they've been having me do that a lot. And I'll explain it. But just right now we're just being open, and I'm going to tell you where to walk. And you notice, and I might stop you and have you look at something, right? And everyone's in a different. You can do both. If you can walk, go ahead. Yeah, of course that adds a somatic experience, but right now, unless we move all the chairs, we're not going to have that. I was hoping to have the big open room, but okay. We're just playing. So again, fun. This is about the love. This is about giving you new information. Yeah.
Front door of the house, or the actual door you use?
Great question. Okay. Front door of the house. Hold on. Let's just ask about that. Yeah, let's stay with the front door of the house.
I'm on the 3rd floor, so I never use the front door, but there's a door that's the next door.
Okay, if you're in an apartment, that's great. You want to stand outside the apartment door. So get yourself inside your apartment right now if you're looking at a condo. Thank you. That was a great question. Anybody else? We're good? Okay. Anyone feel like they need a little more space and they don't have it? Because we want to honor that. Everyone good? Okay. Here we go. All right. So, okay, let's just reconnect to our heart. Okay, I am going to move my body though. Stay in your own space. Okay, so you're going to want to go right. Take 2 steps, go right. All right, and I want you to just do that spin to the right in a clockwise. Okay. 1. Spin again, clockwise to the right. Okay, 1 more time, clockwise to the right. We just want it. We just want it. All right, 1 more time, clockwise to the right. I wasn't joking. Keep going. 1 more time. Don't get dizzy, so keep your eyes open. And you might want to have your sight on something. Just keep going. And I'll tell you when to stop. It's really slow. Take yourself, do not get dizzy here. And if you get dizzy, just stop. Okay. I'm not even counting. Okay, 1 more time. All right, so I'm just going to tell you what's happening here. So it's actually putting you into a positive vibration. And the rods have been doing this, or Spirit has been doing this lately, just to begin to, so remember the toroidal field, right? So we're just in that movement of the toroidal field. So let's just stop for a minute and take a breath. And 1 more time. And if you need to, you can take your left hand and you can put it up. So remember the whirling dervishes? And remember that it's not just your body, you're in your home, right? So believe it or not, like we obviously many of you know we're crystals, right? So you just get a sense of, okay, what is happening for you in doing this movement? In the front of your house, in the front door, just clearing that energy, moving in a positive field, right? We're not moving counterclockwise at this point. Okay. Just stop and take a breath. Okay. Okay, oops. Now we want to go in the other direction. So we're going counterclockwise. Again, just keeping your eyes open, allowing yourself to move. And this is just spirit working on us, working on you, working on that house, clearing that house, opening the front door. Okay. And you just keep going until, just so that you can also keep looking at a particular object in the room so you don't get dizzy. Okay, we don't want anybody dizzy, right? Okay, okay, let's stop. Let's take a breath and let's shake. All right, all right. Everybody okay? Anyone not okay? So we're hanging there. Okay, great. All right, here we go. So you're going to walk forward, and you're going to go. So you're going to walk forward 2 steps, and then go to your right. 3 steps. And remember, you're in your house, huh?
What if I can't go to the right? There's a wall.
Okay, okay. If furniture you can go around, but a wall is a wall. So you're just taking that in. You're just being, whoa, I can't move. So if you're at a wall, just stand at the wall. Obviously, you can't go any further, and just be with the energy. Okay. Well, let's see what the next movement is. So now you're going to go to the left and stop. So 2 steps. Notice where you are in your house. Okay. Okay. Do 1 turn, and then notice what you're facing. Oh, sorry, left to the left, counterclockwise. Okay, so take note of where you are in your house. Notice how it's feeling in your house. Okay, and then you're just going to walk forward in your house, so you can do it with your imagination. You can walk up the steps. Yep.
If you can't move, you don't move.
If you can't move, you don't move, and you just notice what you're looking at, okay? Notice what's calling for your attention until we're complete, okay? Then turn around clockwise, okay? And you're facing the opposite direction. Notice what you're looking at there, okay? And now we're going to move into a different room. So you're going to walk straight. So just keep walking straight. If there's a hallway, or if you come to the end of a room, just keep walking. You're going to go right. And just take a moment here. Look to the right. So we're just going to do a simple, just look to the right. Notice what you're looking at. could be a plant, it could be a window, it could be a photograph, it could be a hang in there for a second. Okay, if you have a room to the right, I want you to walk in there. Only if there's a room to the right, an extra bedroom, or for those of you who have that, walk into the right. And keep walking straight. This is just for those who have a room. Okay, and that's where you want to stop. So
I'm kind of either looking up at my stairs, depending on kind of if it's another step, I'd be in my living room, but looking at the edge of the entertainment center if I don't take extra steps forward.
Are you okay? Do you need to move? You're fine where you are. Okay. Let me just check. Okay. So those are for the people. Oh, okay. Is there anyone stuck at a stairs? Just raise your hand. You're stuck at a stair? Okay.
I'm on the second story of the floor of the foyer.
Okay. Okay. Does everyone have something that is in front of them? Okay. Okay. For those of you that have a room that's to the left, okay, I want you to walk in there now, just through your consciousness. For those who did the right, just stay where you are. For those who have rooms to the left, go into that left-hand room. And I want you to look diagonally to the far corner on the right. And just notice what's there. And I want you to, oh my God, okay. I want you to go back and forth in front of whatever you're sighting. Go back and forth about 1, 2, 4, 5 times. Go back and forth and just feel that movement of going back and forth, back and forth. And then once you've done that 5 times, just stop and notice where you are. Okay, is there anyone else in the room? If you're facing a corner, if you're facing a wall, you're going to just pace. It's pacing. I want you to pace in front of that, going back and forth 5 times. Just imagine yourself, or you can walk it, whatever. Yeah, if you're facing a corner of the room, you're just pacing in front of it, right? You know what pacing is. Okay, you're pacing. All right, is there anyone? Is there anyone, so you're just raising your hands, is there anyone who feels that they don't belong where they are? Just checking. Okay. Are we complete with this?
I feel like I'm in the fifth here.
Yep. Wherever you are, just so here's the deal. You know, given that we're working with a group, just wherever you are, just trust it. Okay? And here's the next thing. I want you to open your breath. First of all, notice your breath. Are you breathing? Or is your jaw clenched tight? What's your body language? So I'm going to invite everyone to take a couple of breaths. You might just want to shake a little bit. Let go of your exhale. Not to worry if you're not getting anything. Again, this is a little bit of an experiment. And I'm just going to find out if we're are we complete with this? Are we complete with this process? Okay. Okay, I want everyone, wherever you are, to look to the left and look to the right of where you are. Not in this room, in the house you're in. Just look around. Okay. Notice if you feel any other person's energy in the room with you. Does that area feel clear to you? We're not trying to clear it right now. You're just being aware of it. And in this case, ask if there's any guidance that your house has, not necessarily this person or this entity or energy. If you feel it's a negative energy, just be in your loving presence, okay? I want to make sure. Does anyone feel like they're with a dark energy or that there's an issue? I just want to make sure that nobody is feeling. Raise your hand if you are, okay? Okay. So now you can just for the experience of this process, you can ask, if you don't have a sense of what's moving for you or what's coming to you, just ask if there's a message for you from the house that you're in. Is there something that, in its love for you, in its support of you, is there anything that, just notice what's coming. And you might not get a message, so don't worry about it. It might be something that comes later on. But you have to keep opening your breath, right? If you need to, put your hand on your heart and one hand on your belly being that womb waters, the information field, the connection to Gaia, your limbic system, and your heart being that field of love. So keep opening your breath. And we're just going to invite everyone to just, when you feel ready, or as long as you feel a sense of, for right now, completion, then you can go sit down. For those of you that don't, you can remain standing and we'll keep going. Keep me aware of the time. So I'm going to invite everyone not to go into everybody else's space for a moment and just be with your own. So do I have... So we're not going to leave the space right now. Okay, I don't know. Okay, perfect. So I want to just give a few minutes if you want to write something, to just if you want to, so that you don't forget about something. If you want to write something down, this is a good time to journal. If you need a pen, just ask me. I passed out paper. You can write on the back of that if you don't have anything. And while the people that are writing, so here's the thing, and that was just like a little bit of a experience and open to feedback. But basically, if you're doing this kind of a process with somebody, it's got to be gentle, and it is an experience of trust. You're inviting them to trust this information field, this love field, to inform them, to help that quickening happen in their consciousness, right? And I will just take a minute. And I'm going to just see if I can find, oh, I turned right to it, of course. Okay, so I'm going to just read you this little piece about this book about a key line. So I was in Australia, and this family called me to their house. They had just bought a new house, and it was a pretty incredible story where The land had been, there had been some Aboriginal fighting on that land, and the lineage was that some Hells Angels had owned, I don't know what they call them in Australia, bikers? I don't know. But it was a biker family owned it. And so there was a lot of rough stuff that was going on. The next owners ended up, they were alcoholics. And now my friends end up by this house. This isn't about the key line, but just give you a little background. And a friend of mine in Australia, who I didn't know was a medium in her past experience, I ended up calling her and she said, "What are you doing there?" And I'm like, and I told her a little bit of how I walked into the house, and I had been given this Australian crystal Buddha that we had happened to put on that morning. In order to go into their house, they had the exact Buddha face on the walking into the entryway. Two stone Buddhas, huge stone Buddhas, and I walk into the front door. Well, actually, it was a side door, which I didn't know at the time, and the necklace breaks. Totally breaks off, and it turned out that there were two negative vortexes in the front door. And what I didn't know, and this ties to a little bit of the story, is that the young boy who had just moved in there felt like he had been chased by a ghost, and he felt that the ghost was trying to if he didn't stop keeping running, that the ghost was going to come get him. And the interesting thing is, well, he said it was a little boy, and this friend of mine who was a medium said, "Well, what are you doing?" She said, "Because I just had this Aboriginal boy come to me who was left on the land, and he was still looking for his father." So it's all in the book. The story is all in the book because it's an incredible story. But the piece about the key line was very, very powerful. So I just got to, of course, I don't have my glasses. But okay, exploring Dave's key line. Inside the family gathered around the open glassed living room. It had a 12-foot bookshelf along one wall that was filled with books and pictures. Dave stood a bit to the side near the kitchen with his hands crossed above his heart. He was alert and had an inquisitive look on his face as I described the process. Asking my guides to show me the whereabouts of Dave's key line through my rods, I was immediately directed to the bookshelf. Some key lines may take you up and down stairs, but here there was no question or query of what they were telling me. And I hope that you're listening so that you can take this and begin to use this in your case if you want. Simply following the rods, I walked towards the middle of the bookshelf. But to what? Amidst all the books, the pictures of the kids, and a few artsy items, the rods kept pointing to a stately trophy, standing all alone. I slowed down and allowed space for everyone in the room to breathe. I scanned the shelves, turned to the onlookers and asked whose trophy it was. Dave smiled and spoke out, acknowledging it was his. He was proud of his trophy, which he had received following a championship rugby game. I then asked him if there was anything else on the shelf that belonged to him. His arms dropped open and he came in closer as his body energetically contracted. He shook his head and sheepishly said no. Everyone waited quietly for me to continue. On the shelf there were pictures of everyone else in the family, but none of Dave. He was a dedicated man with a big heart, though as I found out, he subconsciously didn't feel he was living his life purpose. The guidance from the rods spoke of his need to take up more space in the family, and they pointed to the opportunity for him to step into his power. When I asked him how he nurtured himself, he couldn't answer. After a few minutes, I asked him what brought him joy. Immediately, his eyes lit up and he said surfing. On the spot, everyone in the room could feel his energy begin to shift. I now encouraged him to seek out that which was meaningful to him, focusing on the need for him to create the space for his joy amidst his family life. So I don't need to read any more, but what ended up happening was, so through that experience or simple process that might take 5 minutes, might take 15 minutes, he was able to connect with the fact that that bookshelf was showing him that there was very little of him. He did incredible service for his family, but he was not living his own life purpose. And he also expressed, and that's in the book too, where he had a couple of spiritual experiences, but he was afraid of them and didn't know what it was, but he had never told anybody. Now, Dave was probably 50 years old, never told anyone. So through that experience of a key line, he was able to wake up to what was going on in his life, how he needed to take up space. He started surfing. Like I heard the next week, he started surfing. His kids started going out with him. He started doing yoga. He did a session with a woman who is in the book who really guided me during the time that I was in Australia. And his whole life took on a completely different energy just from that simple key line, right? The other, I'll share this, and I'm sorry I didn't bring it with me. So I'll bring the energy of the key lines to a close and just share a few more things. But this was amazing. The woman who was the medium, remember, she asked me what I was doing. Well, the young boy that came to her in her experience of said that he left a gift. He left a bone. And I'm like, okay, well, what does that mean, right? When the dowsing was completely done, everybody left the house except for Dave and I. And I went to sit out on the porch. And I guess this brings it back to the horse thing. Out in the field, I saw this horse. I saw the tail. Well, the tail was going back and forth. I love horses. I got completely attracted to the field. And as I came closer, I stood up and I went closer, and it wasn't a horse at all. It was a barrel. And I'm like, that's impossible. There was a horse there. And I had this feeling to look down. There was a fence where I thought I had seen the horse. And I looked down and I see this thing on the fence. And I'm like, well, what's going on here? And I walked to the end of the fence. And you know how when a horse rubs up against a fence or a barn door and, they're scraping their tail, they have an itch? Well, this was crazy. There was an entire horse tail stuck on the fence. And it was all tangled in the wire. And I took it off. And I started walking back. And I'm holding this thing. And it's pulsing. And I'm like, no, it's pulsing. I go to sit down. It's pulsating, and I put it down and I pick up a pen just to make sure that, no, this can't be happening. Pen was fine. I pick up the horsetail and it's pulsing. And the horsetail, and I'm sorry, maybe I'll bring it tomorrow, but it had about a 4-inch piece of bone on the end of the tail. How that happened, I have no idea how it's even possible. But as much as I wanted to keep that, I knew that it was for Dave. And it was really about him stepping into his power. And I gave that to him, and about 8 months later, I came back. And you know how with dowsing we can measure people's auras or heart field, whatever, right? So I had in the dowsing, I had measured him and all the kids. They had like 4 kids. And at first, there was about a, 6-foot span, maybe 4-foot span. But when I came back 8 months later, that guy was, like, his energy field was huge. And not only that, he started doing some work. I can't think of what it's called, it's in the book. But he now works with clients. And he's just a totally different person. So this is what a key line if there is one, you have to ask if there's one for each of the people in there, but if there is one, then this is what it can do for someone. Really open up their life in a way that they can't make happen themselves. So I shared a little bit about the book. The book, I think there were maybe one other story about key lines, but it's really about it's part memoir, part dowsing manual, it's a story about my going to Australia and where the land started to speak. I had never experienced this, where the land started to speak really loud, and I began to see and feel into the power of working with, obviously many of you do work with dowsing and energy and energy lines. And the reason the book is called The Song Line of the Heart is because, obviously in Australia, the Aboriginals, when they go on their walkabouts, say they're following the song line. And I'm not going to get into that. I share a little bit of it in the book. There's a whole chapter on it. But really, this is what we're doing as dowsers. We're really learning how to track the energy of the song line of our heart. And then as that opens up, we're helping other people step into that. And so if you're a water dowser, or do different types of dowsing but have never explored this aspect of dowsing, this is the potential to really support people to really live their full potential, really step into that fullness of the evolution of their journey. And then when we start sharing that together, as in the consortium, that becomes just magnified, right? And so if you meet, we have a table at as you walk into the vending, and Charlie, can you guys just stand up for a second? And this isn't for an egoic thing. So Charlie and Shanti Hart and Kathy, and Marty, he can share something with you about the consortium. Marty's been part of the consortium, and in the fall we'll open it up again for another 12 around one group, because there's a whole reason why we do 12. I forgot to bring the cards. So at the table, sorry, I meant to give each one of you a card. So at the table, we are going to open up for the summer for July, August. Is it July, August? June, July, and August. We're going to invite you to come experience as a collective what we experience in the consortium and working with places as a collective, and how what you're bringing matters to the whole, right? And it's really fun, and it's just, do you want to share anything about that? So helpful. It's a hoot. So as an example, when Marty was, and it changes. Some people stay in for 3 rounds, 4 rounds. Some people go off and, whatever. The idea eventually through this book is that you can start your own 12 around one groups, and how to hold the resonance for the group, because there is a skill in holding resonance. But when we were working with Marty, we were focused on Washington, D.C., and we were guided to work as a collective was a bridge that was going into the, what do they call that? Where Washington, Pentagon. The Pentagon. Well, right, but the Beltway or whatever. Anyway, so and so we ended up being really called to work on the water and the bridge. And at that time, Martin Sampson, who is incredible, who is, I'm not going to go into who he is, but right now, but he's still holding the field with us. He taught me something, and I'll share it with you, which was to really begin to, when you're dowsing, really take the time to look at the ancestral history of the land you're working at, and to really find out what were the original, the indigenous names of the rivers, of the land, of the town. I mean, we have there's so many stories here. And to sing the vibrational frequency, or even say the name back to the river, back to the land, because what's happening is you're weaving timelines, right? I'm getting goosebumps. You're weaving timelines, and you're helping to create this greater harmony on Earth with Gaia. And you're honoring, and hopefully Marty and I have been talking, and we'll see, we'd like to do a land acknowledgement for this area so everybody can feel really feel into that, that ho'onoponopono, back to the land, honoring the ancient wisdom as it's moving with as we're attuning, or what I heard this morning is like we are creating the tone for the new Earth vibrationally. And so it's very honoring to call back these names to the river. And of course, check out evolutionarydowsing.com. You're going to see a lot of changes. The website has just gone up, and there'll be some big changes. But starting in the fall, we'll be doing a monthly group where you can bring your cases, and we can talk about them as a collective, and get help from the people who are in that collective. And then thank you to the association, the Society for Dowsing, that we're here and that we can share our wisdom together as a collective to really support this vibrational shift on Earth, here together, and to really celebrate the gifts that each one of you are bringing. So come play with us in the consortium. Come grab a card. They'll tell you about the consortium. And as for me, I'll be, if you're interested, I'll be starting a 6-week signature course, either in the next month or two, but September anyway. And come play and learn this aspect of dowsing if you'd like. And if you have any questions, we'll be out at the table. I'll be out at the table, and there you can, if you have a personal circumstance from the key line, please come talk to me or sign up. We'll have a sign-up sheet for 20 to 30 minute free consultation, because I don't want to leave you hanging. And yeah, any questions about anything? Does anyone have any questions? And don't forget to fill out your green card. Orange. Oh, sorry, they're orange today. They're orange. And I gave as a gift, it's a, you have here, one of these. It's a Merkaba crystal grid protocol. Okay, I'll give you these. So, okay, yeah. So what this is, I just gave this to you as a gift. And so you can take any house, even if it's not doused, and do this crystal grid. Oops, sorry. And if you want more information, email me, and I'll give you real clearer directions on how to do it. But it sets, what I've discovered is when you're using this, this resonance alchemy called Kumvita, and you're putting the crystals in the ground, it actually immediately clears away the geopathic. I've never had just a little bit here or there, one house or two, but it will clear the geopathic stress, and that is a huge help for anyone's house. Of course, ask permission, and I will email you. I didn't think about that I was going to give these out, but I will email you the written out instructions of exactly how to do the protocol for programming the crystals and then getting them in the ground. Yeah? All right, I'm here. I'll just stay here if anyone has any personal questions. And thank you for coming, and much love, and thank you.